Hey there. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. My name's CJ Curry. This is the CJ Curry Show. And in today's show, we're going to be taking a look at the Thursday night football game between the Los Angeles Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs. Got ourselves a doozy. Last Thursday night, we had ourselves a really good game. It was obviously the Rams and the Bills. Bills ended up taking that one, so I'm looking forward to this Thursday night game. This should be another banger. Appreciate everybody who is joining me with the live stream and the live chat. I see some familiar faces out there. Let's give a quick shout out to my man Todd. He says, oh yeah, been a little while since I've seen this. This guy won me some great money last season in the NBA. Smash that like button and let's go. Yes, I appreciate all the likes. If you're not subscribed yet, please make sure that you're subscribed. We're trying to grow the channel as quickly as we can, and I can't do it without you guys, so I appreciate all your support and all your help. We got Tony Ruiz in the building. He says, let's get this bag. Good morning, fam. Good morning back to you. Hoof 15. Yo, yo, yo. Good morning. It's afternoon where I'm at, but I know some of you guys are in different time zones. You know, I'm down here in the Sunshine State, the 813, Tampa Bay, Florida. That's where I'm broadcasting from. That's where I reside. So if it's morning where you're at, good morning. Maybe it's afternoon or good evening, but wherever you're at, shout out to you guys. Appreciate you being here. Official M23 Dog says, I thought this was tomorrow. Well, the game is tomorrow. That's why I said this is like a preview for tomorrow's game. This is Wednesday. Tomorrow's Thursday. So we're just doing a little preview because the props are already out on the PrizePicks board and some stuff has already been bumped up, bumped down. So there's already been some movement out on PrizePicks. So yes, the game is tomorrow, but we're doing a preview today. If that's okay with you, let me know. Let me know. Low Baller says, good morning. Good morning back to you. Jide's in the building. Let's get it. Patreon gang. That's right. We got some Patreon members up in the building. Yesterday's Patreon post went really well. Did a big MLB post. We went 8-2-1. So fantastic night for Patreon. Plus the tacos hit yesterday. Taco Tuesday was a success. Easy for me to say. Was a success. 3 for 3. 3 for 3 were the tacos from Taco Tuesday. But yeah, I'm back, guys, and I'm glad to have you guys back with me. Cameron says, damn, where everyone at? I don't know. Maybe they're not ready for NFL yet. I think NBA slaps a little harder than NFL, but maybe I'm biased. Mo says, what's good, family? CJ, what's up? Let's get this money since I can't win my fantasy this week. Well, you've always got daily fantasy on PrizePicks. So yeah, we'll definitely do our best to try and get you on the winning track. Matt Session says, long time no see, brother. Back at you, man. Yeah, this is my second day back, second stream, second show back. So we're going to get back to business here and get back on the routine. Official M23 Dog says, great to see you back, but scared you wouldn't return. Well, here I am in the flesh. You can't get rid of me that easy. No, sir. Just a little hiatus. Not a lot to talk about over the summer unless you're into baseball. Baseball's a thing. We've been doing really well with baseball lately, especially in the Patreon. If you want to support the show, if you want to support my content, Patreon's the way to do that. $20 a month, man, to be a part of the community. We're putting out winning plays, NFL, MLB, you name it. NBA's right around the corner. So David says, let's go. Good afternoon, all. Thanks, David, a.k.a. Hoodat. Appreciate you being here. King United says, anyone else put PrizePicks props in of their opponent's lineup so you win either way? No, I don't think I've done that. I don't think I've done that. But anyway, gang, what we're going to do today, got a good show for you. We're going to start off by playing everyone's favorite NFL puzzle game, Weddle. It's a guessing game. We've got to try to figure out who the mystery player is for the NFL. So let's get into that. And then we'll take a look at a little preview of this matchup, the Los Angeles Chargers versus the Kansas City Chiefs. And then we'll move into the player prop, the PrizePicks plays for tomorrow night's game, Thursday night football. I'll be taking your questions. We'll be doing the player prop research together. So let's get into it, man. Let's start it. Thomas is in the building. What's up, Thomas? Slap that like button for me if you haven't yet, my friend. Let's get down to the beeswax, the bee's knees. All right, starting off with Weddle. That's right. It's an NFL player guessing game. We could start with any player you want. What do you guys think? What player should we start with? Throw some names out there. We could guess any player we want, any offensive position. Could be a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, whatever you guys want. Who should we start it off with? Waddle? All right. We could start it off with Jalen Waddle. Boom. Jalen Waddle, first guess up on the board. Jalen Waddle, Miami Dolphin, wide receiver, plays in the AFC East. So we got a partial match there. It's yellow, meaning He doesn't play, this mystery player doesn't play in the AFC East, but he is in the AFC. This guy's going to be at least 5'10", right around 5'11", 5'9", possibly. He's older than 23 years old, and his jersey number is a number that's going to be higher than 17. So I'm kind of thinking possibly a tight end, possibly a quarterback. There are some tall running backs out there as well. Official M23 Dog says Chase Claypool. I think Chase Claypool's jersey number is below 17. I could be wrong on that. But we do know that this player will be playing in the AFC and is not a wide receiver. So I'm going to throw a guess out there. I'm going to go with a running back. He's a tall running back. He's a big fella. His jersey might have changed, though. I think Derrick Henry's jersey number may have changed. Let's take a look. No, he's still 22. Okay, I thought maybe he went with a single-digit jersey number. All right, so this player's not in the AFC East, not in the AFC South, but is a running back. We did get a match on that one, but he's shorter than 6'3", taller than 5'10", younger than 28 years old, but he's closer to 28 than he is 23. And of course, the jersey number is going to be one that's higher than 22. So we definitely know this is a running back. We definitely got a running back on our hands here, folks. Yeah, Jide, you and I, Jide, we were on the same wavelength. We were both thinking running back and Derrick Henry. Can't be Dalvin Cook because Dalvin Cook is not in the AFC. Not in the AFC. Joe Mixon? I'm not quite sure how old Joe Mixon is or what his height is, but I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at Joe Mixon. I like that guess. Boom. All right. We got a couple more greens here. We got AFC North. We know they're in the AFC North. We know this is a running back for sure. We've already established that with Derrick Henry. We know that this player is 6'1" in that range. Partial match on the height. The age, 26 to 28 in that age range. So like a guy like Najee Harris probably wouldn't be Najee Harris, right? Too young of a player. But he is in the AFC North. So it could be like a Nick Chubb, a Kareem Hunt, possibly, right? Another guy in the AFC North. Could it be like J.K. Dobbins, maybe a little too young? Maybe like a Gus the Bus Edwards type of guy. Maybe Mike Davis. That could be another one. I'm throwing out some different names in that AFC North, region. Let's go with Nick Chubb, though. Nick Chubb might fit the bill. Not Nick Chubb. However, this player is a Cleveland Brown. We know he's in the AFC North. We know that he's a running back. We know that he's 5'11", at least 26 years old. Jersey number is going to be one that's higher than 24. So, guys, it's got to be Kareem Hunt, right? If it's not Kareem Hunt, who the heck else could it be? Got to be Kareem Hunt, right? That's what I'm thinking. I think we've narrowed it down. And bang. Boom goes the dynamite, as they like to say. Kareem Hunt. Yes, we got it, guys. Appreciate you guys. Took us 5 guesses out of a possible 8 guesses, but we got the job done. Thanks for playing along. Thanks for being a part of Weddle today. Shout out to everybody who said Kareem Hunt. You were right. I see Matt Sessions out there. Moises said Kareem Hunt. Official M23 Dog said Hunt. Jide finally narrowed it down to Kareem Hunt. So King United, I see you as well. Also had Kareem Hunt up there. So yeah, Weddle, something that we like to do around here. Have a little fun before we get into the nuts and bolts of the upcoming game, Thursday Night Football. As Mac B says, run them likes up. Let's try to get as many likes as possible. For those of you who are tuned in and watching, appreciate all the support as always. So taking a look at this game, guys, we got ourselves a good one here. Obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be hosting the Los Angeles Chargers. This game plays tomorrow, as somebody astutely pointed out, at Arrowhead Stadium. Kickoff is 8:15 p.m. if you're here on the East Coast like I am. Now, the weather looking pretty good here. Doesn't look like we're going to have any rain or anything crazy. 83 degrees, partly cloudy. All right. A little bit of wind, 8 miles per hour. Not enough to really discourage me from taking any kind of like passing props or anything like that over on PrizePicks. So I think overall the conditions look pretty good here. Now, I did take a look over on Fantasy Labs, And if you take a look at all the different lines here, if you look at this over-under column, the live total, excuse me, live total, 54.5 points. It opened at 52.5 points. So the live total has went up by 2 points. So Vegas is thinking that this game is going to be one that is high scoring. In fact, this game looks like it's going to be the most high scoring game of any game on the week 2 NFL slate. So let's take a look at that. 54.5 points is the current live total. That means the combined points of the Chiefs mixed with the combined points of the Los Angeles Chargers. This is where you get this 54.5 number from. If we scroll down here, 43, 40.5, 44.5, 40.5, 44.5, 47, 49, 41.5. You get the point, right? The only game that comes even close to having as many implied points is going to be the Cardinals and Raiders at 51.5, and the Vikings and my Philadelphia Eagles, 1-0 Philadelphia Eagles, I might remind you. But yes, this is looking like a high scoring game. 54.5, opened at 52.5. They've already bumped that total up to 2 more points to get to that 54.5. And the spread on this game is 4 points. It opened at 3 in favor of the Chiefs. In favor of the Chiefs. So they do expect the Kansas City Chiefs to win this game. It is now at 4 points, though, in favor of the Chiefs. So Chiefs at home, favored by 4 points, 54.5 total. So that kind of gives you an idea of what to expect going into this game, right? We know it's going to be high scoring. Looks like it's going to be somewhat close and competitive. I mean, the spread isn't at 5, 6, or 7 points. 4 points. It should be one of those games where we could go back and forth. So I'm expecting a lot of offense here from both sides, a lot of passing between these two teams. We've got 2 great quarterbacks, Justin Herbert for the Chargers, obviously Patrick Mahomes for the Kansas City Chiefs, right? One big name that's going to be out for this game is going to be Keenan Allen of the Chargers. How will that impact things? How will that shake things up? Well, you would imagine that those targets, those looks that Keenan Allen would typically get are going to be spread out or dispersed amongst his teammates. Guys like Mike Williams have already seen their receiving yard line moved up over on PrizePicks. So you got him, you got Guyton out there. I mean, there's going to be a number of different names, right? A number of different ways we could go. Shout out to you guys who are just now getting here. Appreciate you. I believe Keenan Allen is officially ruled out. Matt Sessions is asking if anybody out there can confirm. I believe Keenan Allen is going to be officially out for this game. Let's take a quick look back at week 1 for the Kansas City Chiefs in the Arizona Cardinals game. You see the Chiefs offense just came out and did not miss a beat, did not miss a step. Of course, Tyreek Hill no longer there. A little bit of different personnel out there playing wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. But Patrick Mahomes, man, looking like the best quarterback in football still. Hey, no knock, no diss to Josh Allen. Josh Allen's pretty damn good in his own right. But Patrick Mahomes, 30 for 39, 360 yards, 5 touchdown passes. They did run the ball 27 times. Threw it 39 times, though. So definitely going to be one of those typical Andy Reid type of offenses. What we expect out of Kansas City. They're going to throw the ball. They're not going to take their foot off of the gas. They ran the score all the way up to 44, blew Arizona out pretty early. They had a commanding lead early on in that game, and they did not relinquish that lead for the entirety of the game. Now, we go and take a look at some of the other stats here. Obviously, we know Patrick Mahomes is the man. Kansas City's rushing distribution here. Like I said, they ran the ball a total of 27 times. Surprisingly, Isaiah Pacheco led the platoon, led the backfield with 12 carries, 62 yards, and a touchdown. You had Clyde Edwards-Helaire with 7 carries for 42 yards. Jerick McKinnon was involved. We saw Patrick Mahomes scramble 3 times for just 5 yards. And then Marquez Valdez-Scantling, one of those wide receiver end-around type of runs. So looking at their receiving platoon here, obviously Kansas City, they're going to get Travis Kelce heavily involved. He had 9 targets. He led the team in targets. Juju Smith-Schuster, the newly acquired Juju Smith-Schuster, he stepped in. He had himself 8 targets, ended up converting on 6 of those for 79 yards. So 6 catches, 79 yards for him. But it was definitely the Travis Kelce show. 8 8 catches, 121 yards and a touchdown. And you kind of take a look at some of the other guys here. Mecole Hardman, 6 targets, was only able to haul in 3 of those for 16. If he gets 6 targets once again, you hope that he converts on more than just 50% of his targets, right? You had Jerick McKinnon seeing 4 targets. He was tied with MVS, who also had 4 targets. Edwards-Helaire had 3 targets, hauled in 3 of them for 32 yards and 2 touchdowns. So kind of gives you an idea. They're spreading the ball around, but the main beneficiaries, Travis Kelce, no surprise. Juju Smith-Schuster, not really a surprise. And then Mecole Hardman was 3rd in targets. So kind of gives you an idea of what to expect. So let's do the same thing. Taking a look at the Los Angeles Chargers, we already talked about Keenan Allen, probably going to be out for this game. Don't expect him to be in there. Justin Herbert dropped back 34 times, threw 34 passes, 26 for 34, 279 yards, 3 touchdowns. Had himself a fantastic game. Not quite on the level of Pat Mahomes, but still a very strong performance for Justin Herbert in his season debut against a tough opponent, right, in the Las Vegas Raiders. As far as rushing goes, Austin Eckler led the way, 14 carries, 36 yards. Not really much of a rushing attack from the Chargers. They did run the ball a total of 31 times. You saw Justin Herbert take off 4 times, but only managed 1 yard. Some of these other guys, Joshua Kelly, Sony Michel, were involved. So definitely more of a pass-heavy attack, and I kind of think that's how this game goes as well. I see both teams probably throwing the football a lot. Looking at the receivers, Keenan Allen, we talked about him. He's going to be out. He did tie for the lead in targets. There was a lot of people that had 4 targets, though. You had Keenan Allen, DeAndre Carter, Gerald Everett, newly acquired tight end, Austin Eckler, Trey McKitty. Is that a real name? Trey McKitty? I don't think I'd want the last name McKitty if I was a professional football player, but I digress. You had Mike Williams with 4 targets, Joshua Palmer with 4 targets. So Keenan Allen left that game early. Those 4 targets that he got, those 4 receptions that he ended up with, those 66 yards are going to go somewhere else. Most of the 66 yards came on one play, a 42-yard gain for Keenan Allen. So that kind of gives you an idea, right, what to expect going into this one. So now that we know what we know, we could go ahead and kind of take a look at the PrizePicks board. So let's go ahead and do that. Bang, bang. Get things sorted out here. Already locked in some plays over on Patreon. So if you're a Patreon member, go check out today's post. There's a lot of good MLB plays already posted for you guys. And if you're not a Patreon member, or maybe you were and you want to come back, now's a great time to do so because we've got MLB going. We got NFL going, and we got NBA right around the corner. So join the community if you're not yet. It's just $20 a month. Helps support me as a content creator. Helps support the show. And goes a long way, man. Keeping me doing what I'm doing. All right. So let's take a look at the chat. See what you guys are talking about here. Got Todd, Live for Sundays. He's already got some plays that he's looking at. You know, I'm here to answer your questions, try to be a help, try to be of assistance to you guys. He's like an Austin Eckler maybe for receiving yards at 37.5. We could definitely take a look at that one. Let's start with Austin Eckler. We go over to the NFL section here on PrizePicks. There's a lot of different ways to play on PrizePicks, gang. They've got MLB going. They've got NFL going. It's daily fantasy made easy. If you're not playing on PrizePicks yet, sign up using promo code Curry to get a 100% instant deposit match. Basically, for every dollar you put in up to $100, they're going to match it when you use my promo code. So it's like free money. What are you waiting for? Use promo code Curry to make your first deposit on PrizePicks. I know most of you are playing, but if you're watching this for the first time, have never heard of PrizePicks, it really is the only way that I play daily fantasy sports now. And I find it very enjoyable versus a DraftKings or a FanDuel. I don't even mess with those sites anymore. I'm PrizePicks all the way. So check it out if you haven't yet. But Austin Eckler, 37.5 receiving yards. We talked about his involvement in the passing game a little bit last week. He ended up with 4 targets, caught all 4 of his targets for 36 yards. So Austin Eckler, definitely going to be a guy who's going to be involved in the offense. We could flip over to props.cash. Props.cash, great way to do player prop research for NFL, MLB, NBA especially. Probably the best tool out there for player prop research, if I had to say so. If you're not using it yet, again, promo code Curry, first month of props.cash, you'll get 25% off. your first month when you use that code. So let's take a look at Austin Eckler here. We're still kind of heavily relying on last season's stats and what these players did last year. So we're seeing him at 37.5 here on PrizePicks. If we go ahead and bump him down on props.cash, nothing really changes, right? He's still 9-for-17 covering this prop. So the last 17 games that he's played, he's caught or received for more than 37.5 yards in 9 of those games. So that's a 53% cover rate or hit rate, however you want to phrase that. So Austin Eckler, you'd like to see a higher hit rate. You can also go ahead through props.cash and just isolate his games against the Kansas City Chiefs. You can see 2 games played against the Chiefs last year. He ended up with 52 yards at Arrowhead. This game is going to be on the road. I do expect the Chargers to have to throw the ball, so I could definitely see Austin Eckler being very involved, especially without Keenan Allen. Now, that brings up another good point. So, what happens, right? What happens when Keenan Allen goes out? Well, you could kind of use StatMuse to help you with that. You could see I've already looked at Mike Williams and what happens with him. We'll probably end up talking about Mike Williams, but you could also take a look at Austin Eckler without Keenan Allen using StatMuse, and it'll kind of show you what he's done in games where Keenan Allen has been off the field. There's been a total of 3 games. One of those games happens to be a game from last year against tomorrow's opponent, the Kansas City Chiefs. But overall, Eckler, 17 receiving yards against the Giants back on December 12th. All right, so he was targeted 4 times, caught 2 balls, 17 yards. Then you take a look at what he did in the game against Kansas City. He was targeted 7 times without Keenan Allen on the field, caught 6 balls for 33 yards. And then the other game against the Denver Broncos, 3 targets, 3 catches, 23 yards. So kind of gives you an idea what happens. It's a small sample size. It's 3 games, right? Not a whole lot of data here for us to look at, but it's one way that you could utilize another tool, StatMuse, completely free for you to use StatMuse, to help with your player prop research. So you kind of get an idea. Austin Eckler is 0 for 3 in games without Keenan Allen, covering 37.5 receiving yards. Now, that's not to say that he's going to go for less than 37.5 yards this time around, but I make that point that he is 0 for 3 against opposing teams without Keenan Allen out on the field. Now, another thing that you can do, another free resource, pro-football-reference.com. You could go back to last season. You could take a look at how many receiving yards the Kansas City Chiefs defense has given up to the running back position on a per game basis. So let's go take a look at that. You go to the receiving column, you go to receiving yards, you sort, and then you could go find the Kansas City Chiefs, who have given up 52.2 receiving yards per game to the running back position. That's the 3rd most last season. 3rd most receiving yards to opposing running backs. So that's a pretty good sign, right? It's last year's data, but can be somewhat relevant and applied to this year. And then last but not least, I'll hit you with a little projection here. I've got a projection available for Austin Eckler's receiving yards. So let's plug it in. We're going to be using Fantasy Labs. They've got 2 very sharp guys, Sean Kerner and Chris Raybon, who provide projections. We're going to combine the 2 projections, kind of like aggregate those 2 projections. And they've got Austin Eckler for 40.6 receiving yards. 40.6 receiving yards. So he's going up against a defense who allowed the 3rd most receiving yards to running backs last season. He's projected to go over. His line out on various sports books is anywhere from 37.5 up to 40.5. So you got a pretty soft number here at 37.5, right? Some of these lines makers, some of these books have them up at 39 and 40.5. So that may not be a bad look to answer your question. I know that was a long way of getting there, but I got to kind of put the numbers into play, right? We got to look at the stats. We got to look at the data. And I think that's why you guys like what I do, because I do get into the weeds. I do get into the stats, and I'm not just telling you what my gut thinks, right? We actually put some real numbers behind it. So there you go. Austin Eckler looks like he could be a pretty decent play over receiving yards. Zebo, what's up, brother? Haven't seen you in a while. Love that little Tom Brady picture you got going there. Appreciate everybody who's just filing in and joining me for this live stream. So, Todd, I think you're on a pretty decent track there with Austin Eckler's receiving yards. Don't hate that. What else we got here? Taylor says Tom Brady would like to have a word with you, sir, about being one of the best quarterbacks. I don't know, man. After week 1, I gotta say Patrick Mahomes is leading the way right now. David coming through with a little super chat message. Appreciate that. He's liking Patrick Mahomes over rushing yards. He says the reason, if you want the reason for the Patrick Mahomes over rushing yards, it's in Patreon. Okay. Well, what is Patrick Mahomes' rushing yard prop at? He's at 16.5. He did not have a whole lot of rushing yards last week against the Arizona Cardinals. Didn't really have a reason to run. I mean, he was just sitting back there picking the Cardinals apart with his arm, right? Last week, 3 carries, 5 yards for Pat Mahomes. So he would have went under based on this line today of 16.5. Let's take a look at something here. We go to the quarterback position. Defense versus quarterback for last season. We'll go to toggle per game stats. We'll go to rushing. Excuse me. I'm getting all choked up and emotional here talking about player props. We'll go to the rushing category. And then we'll go find how many rushing yards per game that the Los Angeles Chargers gave up to opposing quarterbacks. So they gave up about 17.3 last season. 17.3 last season. How many did they allow Carr to go for? Carr didn't have a single carry, so we can't really look at that. So they're allowing 0 rushing yards, I guess you could say, to quarterbacks this season. But looking at last season, 17.3, which is really close to the number of 16.5 that Mahomes is at. One other thing that we could do here is go back to props.cash. We could change this from receiving to rushing. And we could click on Patrick Mahomes' name. And you can see in 2 games last season against the Los Angeles Chargers, my man had 45 rushing yards and 32 rushing yards. So he blew this 16.5 rushing yard prop out of the water. Averaged 38.5 rushing yards per game against the Chargers last season. So I'm not mad at that. That's a pretty decent look, I would say, here on Patrick Mahomes. Let's bump him down to the 16.5, and his hit rate based on the 1 game from this season and the games from last season, 13 for 21 or 62%. That's not a bad hit rate either. Anything over 50%, I'm feeling pretty good, right? We could also take a look at games at home. So games played at home at 16.5, he was 58%. That's not too shabby, right? 24.3 yards per game on the ground. You could also switch this over to the away view using props.cash. You guys are starting to see why props.cash is my favorite tool for researching player props. 6 for 9 on the ground in away games, including 1 game this season, games last season. 6 for 9, 67%, 23.4 yards per carry. One other way that you can use props.cash that's pretty cool, you can also look at games played on grass. Patrick Mahomes, 10 for 21, 48%, 24 yards per game on grass. When he plays on turf, well, didn't have any games, apparently, where he played on turf. So all of his games are on grass. My man likes the grass. What can I say? But there you go. Patrick Mahomes, 16.5. Let's take a look at a projection for Mahomes. My man David coming through. He's liking Patrick Mahomes over rushing yards. I got it projected for 15. Again, that's the consensus projections. That's Raybon and Kerner's projections put together. 2 really sharp guys in the NFL scene. And they got him projected for 15 rushing yards. Most of the lines out there on your favorite sports books are going to be at a range of 17.5 up to 20.5. So at 16.5, we are getting some value. It is considered to be a soft line. 16.5 on PrizePicks, you're getting them at 17, 18, 20, 19.5 on some of these other sites. So that might be one to take advantage of. Great success rate against the Chargers and a soft line at 16.5. H4 says Derwin James locks down Travis Kelce and the Bolts roll. Bold prediction. He's taking the Chargers on the road versus the Kansas City Chiefs. You guys liking that or not? Who you got winning this game? That's a good question. As I mentioned before, top of the show, this is going to be the highest scoring game of the week, according to Vegas lines makers. Spread of just 4 points, so it's going to be close and competitive. But that 4 points is in favor of the home team, the Kansas City Chiefs, not the Chargers. not the Chargers. Shout out to some of my other Patreon family members out there. We got Desmond in the building. Throwbacks is here. I see you. Appreciate it. Desmond says, take out Keenan Allen for Eckler. What do you mean by that? Ripo says, CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, more than 16.5 passing yards. I'm assuming he doesn't mean passing yards. I'm assuming he means receiving yards for CEH. Could be a move. One thing that we could take a look at, we'll go back to week 1. We're going to have to use, some of the recent data. The game against the Cardinals could be a telltale sign of what's to come here for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but we talked about him. Fourth and maybe fourth or fifth in targets. 3 targets. 3 catches on 3 targets, 32 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he's looking to go back to Clyde Edwards-Helaire here in week 2 versus the Chargers. Let's go see what the Chargers did as far as receptions allowed to the running back position. You had Bolden, who was targeted for 2 passes, went 2 for 2, 21 yards. Okay. I like what I'm seeing there. Josh Jacobs had a target for 16 yards. So you see some of these running backs, they were involved in the passing game. Vegas obviously finding some holes in this Chargers defense, dumping it down to the running back position. So maybe that is a key to victory here. Maybe the Chiefs do the same thing. They try to do the same thing, right? Let's take a look at the stats from last season real quick. We could look at the running back position. We go to toggle per game stats. We go to the receiving section, right? And then we hit the yards column. And we go down, we find the Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers. All the way down at the bottom, they gave up just 27.2 receiving yards per game to opposing running backs last season. That is the 3rd worst or 3rd fewest. So they typically are not giving up a ton of receiving yards to opposing running backs. But I would say out of all the Kansas City Chiefs running backs, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is probably going to be the one that is most involved in the passing game. I think you guys would typically agree with that, right? Typically agree with that. So let's go to the receiving section here on props.cash. We will click on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And we can take a look at 16.5, how often he was able to hit this number based on this season and last season. Now, it doesn't look great, guys. When you first look at it, it's 4 for 13, just a 31% hit rate. Just a 31% hit rate for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But I will tell you this. One of the 4 games in which he hit was against the Los Angeles Chargers. So he has shown the ability to get the job done against the Chargers. He was 1 for 2 last season in 2 meetings against the Chargers, 9 receiving yards in 1 game. At LA, 18 receiving yards, okay, for an average of 13.5 receiving yards per game. So you're going to go look at the game logs. You're going to be like, ugh, this is ugly. Ugh. Why do we want to take this prop? Well, he has shown an ability to get it done against this defense in previous games from last season. Now, last but not least, I'm going to get you a projection on this because I know you guys like to see the projections. You like to see what the models have to say. Well, they got Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 13.5 receiving yards, which is less than 16.5. And based on his hit rates, you can kind of understand why the projection models might have him a little lower, right? A little lower than some of these sports books out here. Now, the books have them at 15.5, 16.5, right? At 15.5, we're seeing people betting the over. Even at 16.5, we're seeing people take the over or more than 16.5 yards. So whether it's 15.5 or 16.5, the betting public likes the over at 16.5. So there's a little info for you on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Probably not a prop that I'm going to go with or play. I probably like Austin Eckler a little bit more out of these top tier running backs from this game. But I could see it happening. I could definitely see it happening. What else we got here, gang? I'm just rolling through the chat. If you guys have any picks or plays, props that are standing out to you, let me know. Of course, we're talking PrizePicks, daily fantasy made easy. So if you have a pick that you want me to take a look at, make sure it's a PrizePicks pick so that we could look at that together. Let's see here. MF June coming through. What's up, MF June? He's liking some Gerald Everett. That was one that I thought looked kind of interesting. Everett, fairly new to the team, right? Fairly new to the team, but without Keenan Allen there, more targets will open up, which means more opportunities for Gerald Everett to catch the football, more receiving yards potentially for a guy like Gerald Everett. Everett had himself a pretty good week 1. We mentioned him earlier. Everett, 4 targets. So him and a whole bunch of other people on the Chargers had 4 targets. He hauled in 3 of them for 54 yards and a touchdown. Now that was with Keenan Allen playing a majority of the game. So without Allen, maybe things open up a little bit for Gerald Everett. Now what we can do here is go to the tight end position using ProFootballReference.com. Like I said, free site, easy way to kind of take a look and see how many receiving yards per game Kansas City was giving up to the tight end position. So I like to go back and look at last season, see how many yards per game that Kansas City was giving up. 2 tight ends. Going through. Boom, 52.8. 52.8. Let's call it 53 receiving yards per game to the tight end position last season. So Gerald Everett at 39.5 against a team that was giving up about 53 per game. I'm not mad at that. I can get down with that. Now, we don't really have a lot of game logs to look at from Gerald Everett with the Chargers, so we're not going to even bother. We're just going to skip right ahead and look at the receiving yards for Gerald Everett. Got him projected for about 35. 35, slightly less than the 39.5 that he's at on PrizePicks. Again, these are just projections. They're just models. They're not perfect. They're not 100% accurate. They're not meant to be a lock. All you lock fans, wear the locks. We know that there are no locks, but this projection here does have him going slightly under 39.5, finishing with about 35 receiving yards. And at 39.5 out on your favorite sports book, they got him betting under, a betting favorite under at minus 120 to go under 39.5. So there you go. Gerald Everett, for those that were asking. What else we got going on in here? Who else are you guys talking about? Let me know. If you haven't liked today's live stream, please go ahead and do so now. I thank you ahead of time for those of you who have and who will soon like today's live stream. Appreciate it. See what else you guys are liking though. Talk Gerald Everett. Matt Sessions is saying Juju Smith-Schuster and Austin Eckler over on receptions. I think we could get down with some Austin Eckler receptions. Let's go take a look at both of those and just kind of see like where the numbers are with both of those. We got Austin Eckler at 4.5 receptions. Juju's at 5 receptions. One of the other prop categories that I liked that they did in week 1 was targets. So a guy can be targeted, doesn't necessarily have to catch the ball, but if he's targeted, that's all that matters, you know? If they're throwing the ball his way, that's considered a target. Doesn't even have to catch it. So that's kind of cool. Targets are a cool way to play. I don't see any targets up on the board just yet. But Austin Eckler, Juju Smith-Schuster, 4.5 for Eckler, 5 for Juju. Okay. We talked about Smith-Schuster and his involvement. 6 receptions on 8 targets. So he would have hit the over based on today's prop of 5. The other guy you were liking was Eckler. Eckler had 4 targets, 4 catches. Do we expect that to go up significantly without Keenan Allen? I don't know, maybe. I mean, looking at the 3 games that he has in his career without Keenan Allen on the field, 2 receptions, 6 receptions. Now that was against Kansas City, so that is kind of relevant information, and 3 receptions. So he's only covered this prop once. Has Austin Eckler at 4.5, and it was against Thursday night's opponent, Kansas City Chiefs. So if you wanted to get down with some Austin Eckler over 4.5 receptions, probably not the worst time in the world to do so against Kansas City. We could go to the running back position, toggle per game stats, go to the receiving category, click on targets. Click on receptions. We're talking receptions. Go find the Kansas City Chiefs, and you can see the Chiefs last season gave up over 6 receptions per game to opposing running backs. That was the 4th most in the NFL, 4th most in the NFL. So Austin Eckler at 4.5 receptions against a team giving up a top 5 amount of receptions per game to opposing running backs. All right, maybe some Austin Eckler over receptions isn't so crazy after all. We could go to Austin Eckler here, take a look at his reception numbers, see how often he covered this prop. Dating back to last season, he's 8 for 17, 47% hit rate. Averaged about 4.4 receptions per game. Now against Kansas City, he played them twice. One game, 6 receptions. The other game, 4 receptions. So he's 1 for 2 against Kansas City. He's going to be in that 4 to 5 reception range most likely. And it could be more on the 5 to 6 reception side if he hauls them all in. Being that Keenan Allen's not out there, I could see some little check downs against this Kansas City Chiefs defense. What else are we guys? What else are you guys talking about? What else are you guys talking about here? HH4 says, don't sleep on DeAndre Carter in the slot for the Bolts. He's a playmaker. So what would you like out of the available Carter props? Well, there's only one Carter prop. It's DeAndre Carter's fantasy score right now. So if you're liking DeAndre Carter, I guess you would have to take his fantasy score because that's the only way to take DeAndre Carter over on PrizePicks. Sponsor of the show. Shout out to PrizePicks, man. Promo code Curry, man. But yeah, if you like DeAndre Carter, you'd have to go with his fantasy score. And lucky for you, I do have the means of looking up fantasy scores. And make sure you're using DraftKings. As far as projections go, you're using DraftKings projections. They are most like PrizePicks. So I got Carter projected for a 6.8 fantasy score, which is a lot less than 9.5. So maybe they're expecting, PrizePicks is expecting DeAndre Carter to do a little too much. Maybe that number's a little bit too high. All right, so there you go. A little bit of info on DeAndre Carter. What else are we talking about here? We got Moises is saying, what do you think of Juju's props? Juju Smith-Schuster. Well, we talked about Juju's receptions. We know that he was heavily targeted in week 1 by Patrick Mahomes. We could take a look at this matchup a little bit closer, put it under the magnifying glass, so to speak. We go to the stats from last season. Defensively, receptions allowed by the Los Angeles Chargers. Pretty decent secondary, right? Los Angeles. They allowed 11.6 receptions per game to opposing wide receivers. So maybe attacking the Los Angeles Chargers at the wide receiver position isn't going to be the move. Maybe it's going to be the tight end position. Maybe it's going to be the running back position, which plays into what some of you folks were saying about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, right? You're asking about Juju Smith-Schuster here at 5 receptions. Looks like a tough matchup based on last year's stats. So, not an exact science, not perfect by any means, but I could get you a little projection here for Schuster. Got him projected for about 4.9 receptions. He's at a 5.5 reception line out on your favorite sports books. Now at 5.5, the public is smashing the under here. Minus 125, minus 135, minus 139 odds to stay under 5.5 receptions, which is why PrizePicks has done us a favor, I guess you could call it, and put him at 5 receptions instead of 5.5. But that could be a move. Juju Smith-Schuster's receptions might end up in a tie or a push, but yeah, I do see both of these teams probably pass heavy, right? Todd says, come on, guys. Hit the like button. CJ's doing all this, taking his time out to give us some info. 27 likes. Let's see it go up. Appreciate you, Todd, for the continued support. Everyday Fantasy, a.k.a. my man Don P., another one of our Patreon members. Shout out to the Patreon members who are joining me, man. I appreciate you guys. He's saying Justin Herbert's rushing yards looks good. But how's he going to run without Keenan Allen? Well, I don't know that Keenan Allen's absence impacts Justin Herbert's rushing so much. But one thing that you could do if you wanted to get an idea of how that looks, you could go Justin Herbert game logs without Keenan Allen. without Keenan Allen. 3 games played without Keenan Allen, right? StatMuse, totally free way to look this information up. It's out there, guys. Passing yards, he had 253, 302 versus Kansas City, and 275. So he's thrown for 250 or more yards in every game without Keenan Allen. So like his passing yards are at 285.5. He did manage 302 against Kansas City, at Kansas City, without Keenan Allen. So that's a pretty good comparison there, right? Kind of gives you a good idea of what to possibly expect from Justin Herbert. So maybe he goes over 285 passing yards. You guys want a projection? I'm sure you want a projection. Let's look at the projections here. Let's see what we got for Herbert. We got Herbert at 274.5. So they actually like him to go for less than 285.5. Now, most of your sports books out there are going to have him at 275.5 up to 284.5. So we are getting a little bit of a high number here for Justin Herbert at 285.5. You're going to find some softer numbers out there on Herbert's passing yards. Now, what else? You had asked about the rushing yards for Herbert. Now, I'm not seeing the rushing yards in here. Touchdowns, 1, 3, 3. Yeah, nothing about rushing yards. Let's see if we can find, by looking at this a little bit differently, Justin Herbert rushing yards without Keenan Allen. All right, there we go. We got his rushing yards at 19 versus the Giants, 9 versus Kansas City, and 26 versus Denver. So 3 games played without Keenan Allen. Justin Herbert's rushing yards at 13.5. You can see he's went over in 2 out of 3 games. But of course, the one game that he didn't go over was against Thursday night's opponent, the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, we could flash back to last season, go to the quarterback position. We could go to the rushing yard, toggle per game stats, take a look at how many rushing yards per game that Kansas City was giving up to opposing quarterbacks, and they were ranked pretty high, about 23 rushing yards allowed per game. That is the sixth highest amount of rushing yards per game given up to quarterbacks last season. Now, they just faced a very mobile quarterback in one Kyler Murray, who ran the ball 5 times, ended up with 29 yards. Most of that 29 was on one run of 21 yards. So Kyler ended up with 29 rushing yards. Will Justin Herbert have at least 14 rushing yards? Well, we don't know. Nobody knows for sure, but just making an educated guess, I mean, maybe. I guess I would lean toward the over. Let's go to the rushing category here on props.cash. Click Justin Herbert's name. Dial this down to 13.5. And last season, Justin Herbert, with or without Keenan Allen, 2 for 2 with exactly 16 rushing yards in both games versus the Kansas City Chiefs. So that gives me a little bit more confidence in the over on Justin Herbert. He's 2 for 3 in games without Keenan Allen. He's 2 for 2 against Kansas City in his last 2 games. Lifetime against Kansas City, 3 for 4, 75% hit rate, averaging 14.8 rushing yards per game. So that's more than 13.5. Take a look at, for his career at 13.5 rushing yards, 17 for 33, 52%. We could even look at splits. Games played at home at 13.5, 56% games played away at 13.5. 47%. So that kind of gives you an idea, right? What you can expect for Justin Herbert. But yeah, I guess gun to head, you're asking me what I would do. I'd probably take the over on Herbert. Let's get you a projection to cap this sucker off. I got him projected for 14 rushing yards. That is more, slightly more than 13.5. We're seeing him at 13.5 to 15.5 out on various sports books out there. So there you go. StatMuse does have NFL, Cameron. Appreciate RJ for subscribing to the channel. HH4 Moises, thank you guys for subbing to the channel. Appreciate your support. We got about 5 more minutes here, gang, and then we're going to wrap this thing up. Let me take a look here. Hopefully that helped you out, Mr. Everyday Fantasy, Mr. Don P. Hopefully that helped you out. Mr. Tony Ruiz says, let's go. MLB started. Hopefully we land on some winning MLB picks today. Todd says, loving the Chargers in this game. Going to be good this year, but have to go with Kansas City at home for the first one. I agree. Mr. Ruiz says, take the under or take Justin Herbert for less than 285.5 passing yards. All right. Emma is asking, is there any interest in Josh Palmer's receiving yards? Well, I think there should be interest in Josh Palmer's receiving yards. If you're not interested yet, I think you should be interested. Based on my experience, based on what I've seen, there's always value out there on some of the lesser known guys, right? What I mean by lesser known guys, well, your main guys from this game are going to be your Pat Mahomes, your Justin Herberts, your Austin Ecklers, your Mike Williams, your Clyde Edwards-Helaire, those types of guys. Those are more well-known guys. Sometimes you could take a guy who's kind of off the radar, off the grid a little bit, like a Josh Palmer, who's not a household name, but should be very much involved without Keenan Allen. In fact, we could go back to StatMuse. We could take a look at Josh Palmer game logs without Keenan Allen. We've only got one game in which Palmer has played without Keenan Allen, so not a big sample size, not a lot for us to reference here, but he was targeted 7 times in that game versus the Giants, caught 5 of those 7 targets for 66 yards and a touchdown. He had himself a pretty solid game, if you ask me. So 66 receiving yards, he's at 44.5 over on PrizePicks. So maybe Josh Palmer gets himself involved in this one without Keenan Allen. Maybe this is a good way to go. We'll take a look at the receiving yards for Palmer and get you a projection on those. He's at 38.3 projected receiving yards. You're seeing him at 44 to 45.5 receiving yards out on your favorite book. So we are getting him at 44.5 on PrizePicks, the softer number, the softer line. Now, over on DraftKings, you're seeing this guy being bet up to minus 140 odds to go over 44.5. So a lot of action, a lot of money coming in on the over for Josh Palmer at 44.5. So if you wanted to take him, I couldn't be mad at that. They've already bumped Mike Williams up, I believe. He was lower last night, I want to say. I think he's already been adjusted or brought up to 66.5. So I'm going to probably stay away from the bump. I don't like the bump. Mac B's liking some Juju over yards. Yeah, Juju over yards could be a good one. We'll just quickly look at that one. We talked about Juju for receptions. Looks like the public's taking the under on Smith-Schuster's receptions. So maybe you go to the receiving yards instead. I got Juju projected for about 49, we'll call it 50 receiving yards. Seems a little bit low, but then you can kind of take a look at where he's at on your favorite sports books. 57.5 kind of being the lowest you're seeing him anywhere, all the way up to 60.5. So PrizePicks kind of splitting the difference, putting him up at 58.5. So you could go there, man. King, I don't know how to say your name, brother. King Jaffe Joe says, I like your process, man. Similar to mine. Well, listen, you're on the right track. I feel like my process is pretty good, right? We don't lean on anything too heavily. In other words, I don't put all my stock or faith in a projection. I don't put all my stock and faith in, hit rates. Kind of like to get a holistic view of everything. Try to come up with a good idea of how the game might play out. Look at the whole picture, the big picture. MF June wants to know, is J.C. Jackson playing Thursday, brother? I don't know. I wish I had an answer for you, but I truly don't know. And I'm not going to sit up here and tell you a fib. I don't know. MF June says, when can we expect more props to load up? Probably shortly before kickoff tomorrow. I'd say Thursday, late afternoon on Thursday. Moises, I will have to take a look at those first half bets. I have not really looked at first half a whole lot for NFL. And RJ says, I have Juju going under and Kelsey going over. Love it. Yeah, Cameron, StatMuse definitely has NFL. But hey, man, that's it for now, guys. Hopefully we landed on some winning plays. Hopefully I answered some of your questions. Chris says, be honest, did your Patreon have Russell Wilson at 1.5 over as a lock? Are you talking about his passing touchdowns? He wasn't on PrizePicks whenever I put my plays in. But I thought maybe his passing touchdowns looked like a good way to go. Didn't end up looking into it too much, to be honest with you, because it wasn't on PrizePicks as a play. So to answer your question, no. No, I did not have him on Patreon, as a matter of fact. Does that mean I win? I don't know. Maybe I got lucky, him not being on the PrizePicks board. But anyway, gang, appreciate all the support. You're going to see me again here probably Friday. We'll talk about some NFL Sunday props and get into what looks good on PrizePicks. So I'll be back again to help you guys prepare for Sunday's NFL slate, answer your questions, and do my best to help you guys get to the money, man. Appreciate you so much. If you're not a part of Patreon, join Patreon. $20 a month, you'll win it back in one night. One $10 2-pick power play, and the whole month is paid for, gang. Whole month is paid for. Catch you in the next one, guys. Peace.